All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the X Zone Broadcast Network and on Classic 1220 CFAJ, www.cfaj.ca. Now, we've heard a lot recently about, people going down to the Amazon or Brazil and, going on spiritual trips using ayahuasca. Well, what is that all about? Do they really go elsewhere? Do they really go on these spiritual quests? Are there other ways of doing this? And what is the origin of something called shamanism? Joining me now from Coaldale, Colorado is Gwilda Wiyaka. And Gwilda is a shaman. She is also a teacher, TV creator, radio creator, and she also teaches courses online. So joining me now is Gwilda Wiyaka. And Gwilda, welcome to the X Zone.
Oh, thank you, Rob. Nice to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Gwilda.
Well, I'm a shamanic practitioner and teacher, and I've been in practice for 50 years or better.
So you started when you were 3 years old. Okay.
I started when I was 3, absolutely. But it's been really a fascinating journey to take, if you will, to come from, clear back when I started, when I was 20, and how it was viewed then. And now we're in these huge transitional times, and it can be a wonderful tool. So I'm trying to get it out there as much as I can. I'm also have a radio show and TV show about evolution, and that's missionevolution.org. And then I do teachings in the Stairway to Heaven. That's stairwaytoheavenmedia.com. And I write books and all sorts of fun stuff.
So you're really busy. And tell me, Gwilda, what is a shaman and what is the intrigue that people are kind of culminating to shamanism these days?
Well, a shaman is a person that uses a journey trance, which is an altered state of consciousness. It's measurable. I'll get into that later if you want me to enter into a kind of an interactive dream. But basically what they can do through that dream is all sorts of things, from divination to spiritual healing to remote viewing to medical intuitive. All those things can come through that one simple form. And that's basically what a shaman is that's what they do.
So is a shaman like a spiritual worker?
No, the way we say spiritual, we think of it as like religion or, angels or this sort of thing. And it's not a religion. It's a practice. It's a healing modality. It's a divinational modality. And it's used, a lot of our modern day things that we think of, like your clairs, the clairvoyant, clairaudient,
Right,
all of those things are included in shamanism. But by spiritual in shamanism, we're talking about it treats on the energetic level of life, person, place, or thing.
Now, there are different types of shamans. We have the First Nation shamans. We have the shamans in the Amazon, and we have Celtic shamans. And are these all on the same frequency?
Well, the frequency always varies no matter what we're doing, okay? And shaman are frequency masters. That's what they do. They're able to, at will, shift their frequency to align with whatever needs to be adjusted at the frequency level for person, place, or thing. So the frequency is always shifting based on what they're trying to do with it.
Why did you become involved as a shaman? What was it that drew you to that epiphany?
Well, it was kind of a happenstance sort of thing. I came into the world real sensitive. I don't know, they might have called me autistic in the day, but very, very sensitive. And then I lived in a very volatile situation where I had to know what the feelings of the people around me in order to stay safe.
Oh my gosh.
And so I turned that sensitivity on high unwittingly, but then I didn't know how to turn it back down. And I was getting input from everybody all the time to the point that I couldn't sleep and everything else. And when I was in college, I was, really starting to fail. I wasn't doing well. I don't mean in college. I mean my life, my health. And I was working in a truck stop to make extra shekels. College students have to support themselves.
Yeah.
And one evening, as I was closing up the restaurant, this Native American couple comes walking and taps on the door because I'd locked it. And they're in the rain. Mm-hmm. And I opened the door, and their truck had broken down. And that was in the day and age, this tells you how old I am, that there was no cell phones. You had to take a quarter and you put it in a payphone, right? And we had a payphone inside, so I invited them in, and then they told me, yeah, we got a hold of my brother. He's going to be coming to get us. And they started to go step outside. I said, well, how long will it take them? They said, well, about 30 minutes. I said, sit down. I've got some coffee left. It's warm in here. I've still got to close up. So basically, they sat there very silently, and when their brother came, they got up and started to walk out the door, and the gentleman took my hand, and he put a napkin in it, a folded up napkin. He closed my fingers over it. He says, you will need this. Use it. I'm like, okay, napkin. I don't know what. I didn't think much about it, tossed it in my purse. Well, when I started really getting ill, really getting freaked out, just couldn't sleep, overwhelmed with all the input that was coming in, I was going through my purse and I found that piece of paper. It had a phone number on it. And I gave him a call. And come to find out, he was a Lakota elder. And I studied with him, and a shaman. And I studied with him, for over 6 years until he crossed when he was in his 90s. And that's how I started in shamanism. But what it was doing for me is teaching me how to control the gift that was about to take me out, which was that sensitivity thing. And once I studied with him for that length of time, so I learned a lot of Lakota-style shamanism, I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I had what I needed. I felt like I needed more. And so I started studying all the Native American shamanism I could get my hands on, which was quite a few: Choctaw, Arapaho, Navajo. You get the idea. And then I started studying Celtic, Tibetan, Aboriginal. I'd travel around, learn all these shamanic forms, and come to find out there's a lot they have in common.
What's the commonality?
There is more than you can shake a stick at, if
Really?
you would. They always use some form of altered state of consciousness in order to access what they call the spiritual realm. But we don't mean as in ghosts particularly. We're talking about the energetic frequency, or the quantum level, if you will, where the push-pull of life happens before it manifests physically. And they do that by managing their own frequency of their energetic field, and that's done through a trance-like state that I mentioned earlier.
Is it fair to say then, Gwilda, that life is based on frequencies?
Yes, that's really the latest. Well, it's been around for a long time, that thought. Einstein, Tesla, all these people have alluded to that for years. And now, with quantum physics opening up, it's really starting to show to be absolutely the case. So it's like we're learning scientifically what they've been working with, the shaman have been working with for a long time.
As a shaman, what is your goal?
My goal is to help people at this time. We're in very volatile times, and nothing is reliable anymore. When things were moving slower, you could do the same thing in the same way, get the same results. And that isn't the case anymore. Everything is up for grabs. Everything's in chaos. Everything's disintegrating around us in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And so we can't rely on basing the future on the past anymore. Shamanism, you could actually access the tendencies that are moving in the world, and it's a wave that goes through life. You find your sweet spot on that wave. In other words, you don't have to be drug under by it if you can get the information to figure out how to run your life based on what's energetically coming at us.
Exo Nation, my guest tonight is Gwilda Wiyaka, and Gwilda is a shaman. Her website is www.findyourpathhome.com. Am I correct, Gwilda?
That's correct.
And of course, you're listening to us on the X Zone Broadcast Network and on Classic 1220 CFAJ, www.classic1220.ca. Gwilda, how can shamanism help the everyday person listening tonight?
It's amazing. It can do all sorts of things from spiritual healing, and I mean energetic healing. And, we have the physical, mental, and emotional we treat. But then the spiritual, the energetic part of our being is pretty much left untreated. And that's where shamanism works for the most part. But like I said, the other thing that's so extremely important is you can divine information with shamanism and get inside info, if you will, about what's coming down the pike in order to make your own decisions and choices from a more informed place.
How hard is it for someone listening tonight who wants to become a shaman to actually become one? And where do they go for the lessons, how to become a shaman?
Well, I'd like to clarify I give trainings. Okay, you can find trainings on my website, and I also do workshops sometimes. But there's a difference between a shaman and a shamanic practitioner, and what your everyday person is going to learn to be is a shamanic practitioner. That's one that learns to perform the practice of shamanism. Okay. But a shaman per se is a master for one thing, and they're usually come from an indigenous background where the grandfathers or the old shaman have handed down this information through the generations, and I like to honor them with the title of shaman versus practitioner because they're really the real McCoy. But anybody, everybody's according to their gifts, but anybody can learn to do the shamanic trance, can access information, can learn to do spiritual healing, and really make a difference in other people's lives and in their own life.
Is there a difference between the shamans within the United States and Canada, for example, who are not native? And how can you tell a good shaman who is not native from a bad shaman who's not native?
Well, there's good and bad native shamans too.
Oh, are there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Know a person by their works. That's the way people used to do it, right?
That's right.
What are people saying about them? What's their reputation? What kind of results has anybody had? If you ask around for your friends, well, of course, if you're looking for shaman, you better look in the right department. You're not going to be able to get a referral from, your therapist or something, very likely. But you go by where they've been trained, where they've been educated, how long their training has been, and what's their reputation. And that's the key, because there is no regulation whatsoever. And anybody that takes a weekend workshop, they can just hang out their shingle and call themselves a shamanic practitioner. And the practice itself is every bit, if not more complicated than being a medical doctor.
Really? Mm-hmm. All right, Gwilda, stand by. You and I have to take our first break for this hour. And X Zone Nation, our guest this hour is Gwilda Wiyaka. Her website is www.findyourpathhome.com. And Gwilda and I will be back on the other side as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Now, if you'd like to get a copy of the current edition of the X Zone Chronicles, visit www.xchronicles.net. And for the X Zone Christmas Mall, are you ready for this? Okay, xzonexmas.com. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network and on Classic 1220 CFAJ, www.classic1220.ca.
sent from up above. And I know
Welcome back, everyone. Gwilda Wiyaka is my special guest this hour here in the X Zone, www.findyourpathhome.com. What are the most common mistakes made by aspiring shamanic practitioners, Gwilda?
Well, the first and foremost is I mentioned that the shamanic trance, excuse me, is much like an interactive dream.
Mm-hmm.
And as all dreams, it can be literal or it can be metaphorical. And there's a lot of metaphors that come through. And one of the largest mistakes is taking what is a metaphor and interpreting it literally. Okay, so say for instance, if I'm doing medical intuitive and I suddenly in my shamanic trance see a monster in this person's gut, right? I don't sit up and say, hey, you've got a monster in your gut, you're possessed.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what that is my metaphor coming through in language that I should be able to understand, that's saying that he has something that's not in balance, that's giving him grief, that's causing him illness in his gut. Okay, and it goes on and on. People divine the future, but then they interpret it according to their beliefs and what they make of it. It's really the information coming through is for the client. You just give them the information, help them work with metaphor, and leave it be. So that's one of the biggest mistakes, is taking literal what is actually metaphorical. And another one that's really difficult is, some don't recognize confidentiality and all those rules and regulations that we do for a therapist. And if you're working in shamanism, you're really getting into a deep and sensitive place in another person, and you really have to treat that with integrity and confidentiality, and not share the information with anyone else, that sort of thing. Those are the two biggies in my book.
Where did shamanism start? What's the history of shamanism?
It's so ancient. We really don't know. It's purportedly between 50 and 60,000 years old. Mm-hmm. It's been practiced at the base of every culture that we have in one form or another, and still it exists today in a lot of the different cultures. So it's been around a long, long time. And there's cave drawings, of shamanic symbols and this sort of thing in the Americas here. But clear over, the Aboriginals have the same symbols, very similar symbols the shaman have put in their caves. So it's like, and the Aboriginals being in Australia, there was no communication back and forth.
Yeah.
So where are they getting this information? From the earth itself, quite frankly. The earth and stars.
Is there a difference between a shaman and a medicine man?
It really depends which tradition you're speaking to. There are medicine men, and there used to be women. Now there are starting to be again. And they work with the shamanic form, and they work with healing people. Then there are others that do, like the Lakota, medicine man could do a sweat lodge, perform the sweat lodge ceremony for the people. But the shaman, I remember one time, they were saying, I was talking to a Native American, and I said, well, what about the shaman of your tribe? He said, oh, we don't like to get around them too much. They're crazy. Okay. The shaman are kind of set apart in that they speak to other worlds, they commune with other worlds, and because they work so much in metaphor, they're kind of difficult to understand. But they're the ones that have mastery, and they'll perform the sacred rituals, and they also do the healing. They'll be the ones that do the divination for the tribe way back when. Where's the game? Where do we move our camp to next? That sort of thing. So that, it's just a matter of degree.
Why would it be up to the shaman where the camp is? What's the logic behind that?
Okay, so if you consider that the shaman gets his information from the earth and from the stars, and their life depended on being where the game was and being where the weather would support them, the shaman could divine which spot is going to best serve the tribe this season. So they'd have different locales that they might use at different times. It's just like we have weathermen, right? And they say, well, you don't want to be on the coast this week, right? If you are board up your windows, right? But they're able to read the currents in a different format, but they read the currents and discern where's going to be the most advantageous place for them to set up their camp, or where the game is, where the game is going to be.
So where does the shaman get this information from?
The unified field, I believe. It comes from the earth for sure. And if you want to talk the more Western way of viewing it, everything is surrounded by a toroidal field or an energetic field or our auric field.
Right.
Ours is generated by our heart and by our brain, but mostly by the heart. But the earth has one as well. The sun has one as well. The entire solar system has one, okay? And so all these energetic fields, where they cross over, information is exchanged. And so if I'm working on a person, whether I'm working to bring shamanic healing to them or I'm working to bring them information, my field crosses their field, and that's where I'm getting my information. And that's where you do mediumship as well. You're crossing into that person's field, and within the field is the information of the one that's crossed. Now, are you really talking to the one after they've crossed? That's still up for debate as far as I'm concerned. But the energy of the person that they knew that is crossed is still in their field, and that's what you're accessing. So that's where the information comes from. It comes from the earth and the stars through the toroidal field of the shaman that then interfaces the toroidal field of a tree, of the planet, of a person. And that's where the information comes from. Then it has to be received in the imagination and translated in metaphorical form to make sense to the mind before you know what you're really looking at.
A lot of people talk about the Akashic records, where this is all the records that for whatever was, whatever has been, whatever will be, are stored. Is this where the shaman also get their information?
Yes, they can. They can. They don't necessarily call it that, but they absolutely can access the Akashic records. Now, the Akashic records, I believe, the way they define them, okay, because there's boundaries here that are pretty loose.
Sure.
But I think the way they define them as everything that has been, will be, whatever, in relationship to the earth. So like all the animals that have ever been and gone extinct, or the ones that are going to come in the future, all that information, or the frequency of those things, those realities, are stored in what they call the Akashic records. And yes, shaman can and do access that.
So does the shaman have the ability to look into the future, go into different universal planes, go into different vibrational areas?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what makes them so crazy, is because they can transcend all those things. So they aren't really anchored to this reality. And if you're not really anchored to this reality, there's a whole wide array of knowledge and impressions and frequencies and realities that you're privy to that the common person in this reality is not. And as we're learning more and more about timelines and simultaneous realities and all this stuff, we're starting to better understand what it is a shaman does look at and where they actually go and where they're getting their information.
Do shaman believe that there are multi-levels of existence?
They work at multiple levels of existence, yes. So I would expect that most of them acknowledge that.
Would you say that a shaman is also a medium, that they're also clairvoyant, clairaudient, and all of what the Western world would call medium or psychic?
Absolutely. They use the shamanic practice to access those skills. And so, of course, each according to their gifts, each according to their limitations. Some might be more inclined to be a medium. Some might be more inclined to do divination. Okay. Some might be more inclined to read the weather or read the clouds. But basically, all of those skills that you mentioned are available to the shamanic practitioner.
There's a lot of misinformation on the internet, Gwilda. How does somebody know who's looking online for shamanic information? How would they know who is legitimate or who is not? And of course, I'm putting you in the legitimate side, but there are a lot of other shamans out there, or wannabe shamans, who just don't know what the heck they're talking about. So how does somebody who has no knowledge, but they've heard so many wonderful things about a shaman that they want to go looking for a shaman, how do they know who is good, who is bad, who's legitimate, and who isn't?
Well, again, you really have to go by a person's reputation. But like you say, when you're going online, well, what do? Give the stars for the shaman? I'm a 5-star shaman. You know what? How do you do that? Well, one of the things is research where they've trained. What form do they use? What do they charge? Okay. And that sort of thing. Because if there's a fly in the ointment, it'll show up by through greed, or it'll show up through simply not having any substantial training.
So would you say that a person has to do their due diligence in learning and doing research before they just go and say, oh, look, I like this website. Let's go down and talk to the shaman?
Yes, absolutely, I would, because this the good news about shamanism is it really works. The bad news about shamanism is it really works, and it's powerful, and it can be misused and set a person back.
Really?
And you don't want that.
What has happened that you know of where a person has tried to use shamanism not for the right reason? What kind of repercussions can that person find themselves in?
Well, there's all sorts of stories about it. You know, I love the old Ten Commandments movie where he says, you cannot break the law, you can only break yourself against the law. Okay?
True.
So when a person is not walking straight, as they would say, when a person is claiming to be a shaman but really aren't, they're dabbling in frequencies and energies that they have not processed enough to manage responsibly. And that comes back and kicks them. It really does, because there's this backlog of unprocessed hidden agendas within them that's then brought to the surface, and it doesn't go well for them in their lives.
Gwilda,
If you're talking about the practitioner.
I was just going to ask you, how long does it take a person to become a practitioner?
Well, I used to train and a practitioner, I teach practitioner classes. I had a certified trade school of the shamanic arts in Colorado. It was state certified, and it was a 2-year program. And at the end, you got a certification that said you had completed and passed the 2-year program. I wasn't certifying shaman. I was certifying that they had completed the program.
Gotcha.
Okay. And they're babies. They're babies when they graduate after 2 years. They can function within, they can do the skills, they can do the healings, they can do that stuff, but they're still really babies as far as really getting the depth of this practice.
Gwilda, stand by. We've got to take our break. Exonation. Gwilda Wiyaka is our special guest. www.findyourpathhome.com. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, and on Classic 1220 CFAJ, www.classic1220.ca.
It must have been sent from up above, and I know you'll stay this way for always. And we both know that our love will grow, and forever it will be.
Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Hotline. If you are obsessive-compulsive, press 1 repeatedly. If you are codependent, ask someone to press 2 for you. If you have multiple personalities, press 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you are paranoid, we know what you are and what you want. Stay on the line and we'll trace your call. If you're delusional, press 7 and your call will be transferred to the mothership. If you are schizophrenic, listen carefully and a small voice will tell you which number to press. If you are depressive, it doesn't matter which number you press, no one will answer you. If you are dyslexic, press 69696969. If you have a nervous disorder, please fidget with the hash key until the beep. After the beep, please wait for the beep. If you have a short-term memory loss, please try your call again later. And if you have low self-esteem, hang up. All our operators are too busy to talk to you.
Everything
And welcome back, everyone. Gwilda Wiyaka is my very special guest. Her website is www.findyourpathhome.com. She is a shaman. And how can we describe the word shaman in just a few little phrases, Gwilda?
Okay. A shaman is it's a practice that through ritual helps enable the practitioner to manage matter at the quantum level.
That sounds very plain, very simple, but yet so complicated. Where does quantum physics come into this whole equation?
Well, that's what's so fun about living in the times that we are, is because quantum physics is opening up so many different possibilities. It's also starting to explain a practice that's been around for 50 to 60,000 years. And the shamanic practice works at the energetic level, and that's the quantum level. And so that's what it has to do with it. It works in that arena. And what's so beautiful is when you're working the energetic level, things aren't set in stone yet. It's like you're working soft clay versus something that's already been fired and trying to tweak it to your purpose. And that's where they work. That's what they do. And it's been around a long time.
Gwilda, where do you stand on appropriation of ceremony?
That's a real hot topic, and it has been for a lot of years. Like I mentioned before, there's a genetic predisposition to being a shamanic practitioner. There's also a genetic predisposition to what form of shamanism works best for you as a client. And a lot of it has to do, again, with our genetics. The ceremonies, that have been passed down in different indigenous tribes for generations and practiced in a particular way really need to stay with them. Now, there's basic principles that you can use that are common to all shamanic practices that are very valid, and nobody owns the wind. We can create our own ceremonies based on tried and true practices in a shamanic practice. But if, say, for instance, a person is going to appropriate a ceremony, like someone that's not native and hasn't been trained with the native elders to build and perform a sweat lodge, well, we've seen what happens there. People die.
Yeah,
it's a powerful form, and it's and then charging for it. That's not good. You don't. It's. I do shamanic healing, and I charge for that. But if I'm going to do a ceremony, a wedding or anything, I don't charge for that. It's because everybody gets together, and you're coming together in a sacred way to create a sacred space to perform, like a wedding or whatever. And that's spiritual work, and that you just don't put a price tag on that. And a lot of people are taking a little bit of this practice, a little bit of that practice of the indigenous peoples, and then just kind of throwing it out there. And there's a reason it's performed in exactly the same way. And if you don't perform it in exactly the same way, if you just take a few of the practices and then not the whole enchilada, or don't understand it, at very least you won't be doing anything. At worst, you'll be causing harm.
What is the difference, Gwilda, between a shamanic ceremony, wedding, for example, compared to a Christian wedding?
Depending on how the person that is focusing the wedding, in other words, the minister in a Christian wedding, or the medicine person in a Native American wedding. Sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of our weddings have turned into a dog and pony show, right?
Right. Yes.
It's all about the clothes. It's all about the oh my gosh, what a nightmare! It's turned into a big money making machine. And those ceremonies that don't stand to the tried and true ceremonial practice, they aren't doing what the ceremony used to do. And what a wedding ceremony was designed to do, and still does, is to create a bond. So you bring together a group of people, you come into group agreement that these two people are committing themselves to each other and creating a bond, and it's energetically put in place through the ceremony. And that's the other thing, is you need to break that bond. But people are getting divorced, but never really doing this. There should be a divorce ceremony, right? So that you could unravel the bond that was created. And people don't understand the energy behind it, and therefore they aren't mindful of it. And it's real messy.
So how can people better understand the energy behind their actions? It seems like, they go one way, but they forget to go the other way. And when they go the other way, they should undo what they did the other way, the first way. You know what I mean? I don't
Right.
even know what the hell I mean by that.
Actually, I did follow.
Okay, good.
Good thing I can be in more than one reality at once, right?
That's because you're a shaman. Yeah.
So the one thing you have to be mindful of is that, a lot of, they say every word, every deed it travels to the seventh generation. Okay, what does that really mean? Well, it means that our words, our thoughts, our deed carry frequency, and that ripple can go for 7 generations and beyond. So if you have created a frequency by even cursing somebody, saying, I wish that person would just get out of my life, or, that's a curse. Okay? You've put upon a person a repelling curse. I mean, that's as simple as what a curse is. So we have to be mindful that our words carry amazing power. Our thoughts, our intentions carry amazing power. And the only way to wield that in integrity is to become processed yourself, to get introspective, to work through your triggers, to work through the places that you aren't walking straight. And the more you do that, the more capable you become as a human being, and the more capable you become as a practitioner, if that's what you're wanting to do.
Gwilda, you say that shamanism is earth and stellar based. What do you mean by that?
Well, we think of it as an earth-based practice, but actually, if you think about it, it's very stellar-based as well. So the Mayans, the ones that built the Mayan calendar, were both mathematician and shaman. They were shaman, and they've looked back and studied it, and they were getting the information that they built that calendar on from the stars. And they didn't even have so much as a telescope, but the accuracy of the calendar that they built and what it is about the cycles within the stars, within the heavens, and how those energies affect behavior of human beings on the earth. And they're darned accurate, okay? And the Lakota have a beautiful ceremony they do in the Black Hills. That's why it was such a sacred ground to them, is every year they do a walk. And there's different family lines that have learned a particular ceremony that aligns with a particular star. And they travel across this land and go to those sacred sites, each family on the site that corresponds with the star, and do ceremony. And it realigns their people with the energies that are present at the time.
Wow.
And that's the same thing with Stonehenge, the same thing with the mounds. All of these sacred sites on the earth were designed to align with the stars, to align with the heavens, and to rebalance the people based on that alignment.
Just as the pyramids at the Giza Plateau.
Exactly.
Now, Gwilda, we talked about shamanic ceremony, but what about shamanic divination?
Shamanic divination is really a powerful form, and it's one of the many important ones, I think, for our times now. And what you can do with shamanic divination is you're reading the currents at the quantum level of what is about to take form before it has. And if you can read them accurately enough, you can decide, I think I'll turn left instead of right. Okay? Because the timeline I'm traveling on right now, this is what is seen as being some of the obstacles I'm going to run into. Well, and then you can ask in a shamanic trance, well, what does it look like if I do such and such? What does it look like if I do such and such? And then you get different answers, and you base your personal decision on those answers. You don't go into a shamanic trance, or you don't ask a shamanic practitioner to make your choices for you. And that's another one of the errors that budding shamanic practitioners can do, is advise a person as to what they need to do, because they don't know what they need to do. They can just tell them what the currents are, and they have to make up their own minds.
Exonation, Gwilda Wiyaka is my special guest, and her website is, findyourpathhome.com. And Gwilda is the host of Mission Evolution at www.missionevolution.org. We're coming back very fast down to the end of the segment, Gwilda. We've got about 2 minutes, my producer was telling me. It seems that a shaman is more in tune with what is going on than a psychic is.
Yes. A psychic, for the most part, is usually a gifted person that can access certain levels of the quantum field and get images and then interpret them. But most of them haven't been trained in the journey trance. They haven't been trained in creating space before you do it. They haven't been trained in ethics, all those fun, wonderful things. And they can only go so far with it because of those limitations. Where a shamanic practitioner can not just be psychic, but they can also be a clairvoyant. They can be, talk to, bring the information from people that have crossed and that sort of thing. So it's a much more advanced form and a much more highly trained form.
Are there certain traits that a person is required to have to become a shaman?
It's just like playing basketball. Okay. I've never been interested in basketball. I'm short, I'm white, and I'm female. And so it's just not my thing, right? I'm never going to be a Michael Jordan. But I can probably learn to dribble a basketball around, right?
All right.
And it's the same thing. It just depends on where your gifts lie. But by, if you really do some soul searching, if you're not gifted in that direction, you probably don't want to go there anyway. Probably not interested.
Gotcha. Gwilda Wiyaka, please stand by. Great talking to you, my dear friend. And Exonation, if you'd like to find out more about Gwilda, maybe you'd like to contact her for a one-on-one consultation. Maybe you'd like to become a shaman. Maybe you'd like to take one of her courses. Maybe you'd like to buy one of her books. Maybe you'd like to buy her CD. www.findyourpathhome.com is her website. Exonation, Gwilda and I will be back on the other side of this very short break as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario. And we're coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net and Classic 1220 CFAJ, www.classic1220.ca. We'll be back on the other side as we continue our investigation into the world of the paranormal, science of parapsychology, and don't forget, we're always searching for answers, but demanding the truth. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season. You say you wanna change the world. It's all right with me. There's no regret. It's my turn. The circle game has brought me here, and I won't let down till every sun is set. You realize now you shouldn't try now.
And welcome back, everyone. If you like the music that we play here on the X-Zone in our bumpers, then you will just love the music that you can listen to on our new affiliate in St. Catharines, Ontario. And of course, that's 1220, Classic 1220, CFAJ. Their website is www.classic1220.ca. My guest this hour, a good friend of mine, Gwilda Wiyaka. Her website is www.findyourpathhome.com. And of course, you can listen to her Gwilda's show, Mission Evolution, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. First of all, my friend, thank you so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you.
It's always so fun having time with you too.
Let me see. Like a lot of people have really don't understand what shamanism is. What is the hardest thing for any shaman to overcome in today's society of false information, false news, and just total skepticism?
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? And I'd have to say that the wannabes that don't want to put forth the effort to learn the practice in a responsible way give us more of a bad rap than anything else, because they go out and they're kind of half-cocked and they
Yeah.
do a bad job and the stuff doesn't work, and then they start interpreting things as literal. Oh, I saw a demon, your house is
Oh my
possessed.
gosh, yeah.
Oh, thanks a lot, instead of that, there's just some energy in here that is incompatible with the family. So that's one of the big hurdles. The other one is misunderstanding and viewing it as a religion and thinking that, oh, well, it's a pagan religion, and ergo, if I'm a Christian, I don't want to get anywhere close to it. Okay, so there's that. Then there's the scientific community that has anything that's esoteric has been invalidated because they don't have testing yet that can register it. However, I've had EKG put on my head, and they can register every time me going into a shamanic trance. My brainwaves change from beta to alpha, and then I go into theta when I'm doing the trance, and I can do it at will. So there is evidence of this going on. And like I said, as we're getting more into the quantum physics and this sort of thing, it's all starting to bleed together to where it's starting to make more sense. But those things are difficult, and the woo-woo around it, people that practice it but don't understand the practice or can't explain the practice, hasn't done it any favors either.
I would imagine they're just like the people who pretend to be psychics but really aren't, and a lot of armchair quarterbacks out there.
Exactly.
Right.
Same thing. In any of those cases, you really need to pay your dues.
Yeah.
You've got to do the work. You've got to not only learn the form, but the light's only as clear as the window through which it shines. If you have a bunch of issues, a bunch of hidden agendas, all that stuff, it muddies the information and it can't come through clearly.
Gwilda, you're a preceptor for the University of Colorado School of Medicine. You provide instruction to medical doctors on modern interface between shamanism and allopathic medicine. How's that going?
I've been doing that for over 15 years, and I love it. The new docs coming out, they're just wonderful. They're so open-minded, most of them, and what I teach them is how where shamanism and allopathic medicine interface, and how the two forms can help each other out. And I have a lot of the docs that I've worked with in teaching that still come to me as clients and refer to me as colleagues and that sort of thing.
So how can shamanic healing and allopathic healing work together, and how can they best serve the public who need help?
Yeah, that's the thing. Unfortunately, there's no insurance code for shamanism. I'm going to have to work on that. No, but all joking aside, I've worked with doctors. I do medical intuitive, which is another shamanic form where I can look into the body and give, then the doctor will say, what do you see here? What do you see there? What's it going to look like in 6 weeks if they take this pill? What's it going to look like in 6 weeks if they don't? Because shamanism isn't anchored in time or space, you can move forward and backwards in time and get that information for them. And what I do has been backed up, because I worked with so many doctors, has been backed up with MRIs and CAT scans and that sort of thing. So imagine how non-invasive that would be. And you don't want to base diagnosis on just one test.
No, of course
but
not.
It's one more thing that gives a whole, you can triangulate information, and it gives a whole different view that can really help in diagnosis.
One more tool in the toolbox.
Treatment. Yeah.
How can shamanic healing help us to evolve?
That's the whole point in my book, okay? Because what happens to us when we suffer a spiritual illness is basically we hit up to some kind of trauma in our life. Now, all of us have had trauma.
Yeah.
This is across the board. We've all had it. And every time we hit up to a serious trauma, we disconnect from part of ourselves in order to avoid ever having that happen again. Well, I'm not going to do it that way again. Well, to everything there's a purpose and a time to everything under heaven. There's a time that you're going to need that frequency. Just because it didn't go well for you in this circumstance, you disconnect from it, okay? Particularly as children, because they don't have the wherewithal to discern.
Sure.
They just go, okay, not going to do that again. And it's not even a conscious choice. They just shut down that part of their psyche. Eventually, every time you disconnect from part of yourself, you've disconnected from part of your frequency. And pretty soon your bandwidth of frequency narrows down, and that's what we're seeing is aging. Okay? People are aging prematurely and dying because they're losing their frequency. There's a frequency below which we cannot maintain physical health. There's a frequency below which we cannot maintain life. Okay. Let's reverse this.
Okay.
If we go in and we start reclaiming all these places that we have disconnected from, it expands our frequency, it expands our awareness, it expands our consciousness, it increases our health, it brings out more creativity, and basically it's a form of evolution.
Fascinating. Truly fascinating, Gwilda. Now, why do you see such an ancient practice as having value in our modern society? You know, the society of AI, the society of everybody has a cell phone, and everybody has their ears open to the multiplex of channels that are streaming, well, what used to be called news. How can shamanism help us?
Well, I think it's more needed now than it has been in recent history. And the reason being, I don't think anybody can look around us and not see that a lot of things are disintegrating. We've got the weather changing. We've got the societies and wars and going through all that kind of stress. And we have the economy issues. I mean, any place you look, any system you look at, there's chaos right now. And that, like I mentioned before, that makes it very difficult to decide what's the right action to take.
Right.
Do I invest in this stock? Do I put it under my mattress? Do I, that sort of thing. And with shamanic divination, you can look at any issue and see the currents that are going to affect that issue, given you take a choice. So if we talk about timelines, instead of we're not just on one timeline, every time you make a choice, you've changed the timeline. You've taken a different path. So what shamanism can do is show you the results of those changes of path, and you can choose which one to take. I truly believe that shamanism will become obsolete in that. As we advance here, we're not going to need a practitioner. We can do our own. And that's what I'm really hoping for, is that enough people reach critical mass of expanding their frequency to where everybody can start to read at the quantum level instead of thinking we're stuck, we're victims of this reality, because we aren't. We're only in this reality because we believe we are.
This sounds like something from The Matrix.
I loved that movie for just that reason. In fact, it was required watching in the school, one of the classes.
Really?
That was the required watching.
So in your opinion, as a shamanic, not only practitioner, but a true shaman, are we living in a holographic world?
Yeah. Believe it or not, I really see that. That this is a world that is as it is because we're holding it there frequency-wise. Again, Einstein said, match the frequency of the reality you want. You can't help but get that reality. Well, the more of us that believe in a particular reality, and what's the news feeding us? Okay, our reality is being designed for us. We're buying into it, and we're creating it and maintaining it. If we free up our ability to access and work with matter at the quantum level as individuals, we can change this reality. It won't be difficult and it won't take long. But as long as critical mass is on the side of this reality, it will remain.
But isn't it possible that if we change this reality, we may get one that's worse than this one?
It really depends on our beliefs and our agendas.
So how do we get everybody aligned and in tuned to increase the frequency so that we evolve into a better reality?
Well, everybody has to do their little part, and the X-Zone is helping me do my part by, broadcasting my radio shows and my Stairway to Heaven episodes. And I have feedback come back. I can't imagine this person, clear out of the blue from another country contacting me saying, my mother and I used to watch your Stairway to Heaven together. It made so much difference. Okay, and it made her crossing easier. And, these kind of answers coming at me, I realized that the beauty is it doesn't take the whole society. The 100th monkey theory, it doesn't take the whole, even a majority of the people, to start to make a substantial change.
Just one.
Just one. Yeah.
Son of a gun. Gwilda, we've got about a minute and a half before we have to say so long for tonight. First of all, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight. Thank you very much for all the great work that you do. I know for a fact that you touch hundreds, if not thousands of people each and every day who listen to your shows. So thank you for those people who haven't got the ability to thank you in person. What is your final message for the X Zone Nation tonight?
You know, it's looking crazy out there, but there is a time of chaos. Anytime a system breaks down before a new order is established, we're in that time of chaos, and it's an alchemical time. When things are in upheaval, they aren't as locked in place, and we can change this into something that is beautiful if we just watch what we are inside and bring that into the world.
How can people find out more about you, my dear friend?
Well, the good safe one is always findyourpathhome.com, because you can find out about my my shamanic work, my teachings there, but you can also access my radio show, Mission Evolution, and you can also access my Stairway to Heaven episodes from that site.
Gwilda, thank you very much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you. I look forward to talking to you again. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Rob, for all you do.
Good night, my good friend.
Good night.
X Zone Nation, our guest this hour has been Gwilda Wiyaka, www.findyourpathhome.com. Now, I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. If your station does not carry us into the next hour, all you need to do is go to our website at www.xzbn.net. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Send me your emails, your comments. If there's a special guest you'd like to have us bring onto our show, visit. Email address me. Well, just send me an email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back. Don't go away.
For every boy and every girl. Closing time. One last call for alcohol. So finish your whiskey or beer.